What if the person you've been protecting your whole life was actually stealing from you? My sister Brianna's voice cut through the restaurant like a jagged blade. We were at one of those New Year's dinners, the kind where everyone's dressed up and everyone's keeping score. She leaned back in her chair, basking in the silence she'd just created with that smug smile. "You're already 37 and still single," she said. "Must be tough spending New Year's alone." I set my glass down slowly. The condensation was cold against my palm. I looked her straight in the eye. "Don't worry about me, Brianna," I said, my voice steady. "I've been married for a long time." My mother froze mid-toast. Her champagne glass trembled just enough to make the bubbles dance. The entire room went silent, that heavy, suffocating kind of quiet, where the air itself seems to disappear. "Before we go further, I want to ask you something. Have you ever felt like the invisible one in your own family, like you're just a background character in someone else's highlight reel? Drop a comment and let me know where you're listening from right now. I'd love to know who's part of our community. For 37 years, I'd been the spare in the Cahill family, background noise to Brianna's high-definition life. While she was marrying Brandon at 24 in a wedding that looked like a Pinterest board, I was pulling 36-hour shifts in a trauma center. While she was posting photos of her two photogenic children in matching organic cotton outfits, I was staring at brain scans, trying to find that thin, flickering line between life and death for patients who couldn't remember their own names. My parents built a small, carefully manicured world and then decided anything outside of it didn't exist. To them, if a life isn't measurable in likes or suburban square footage or grandkid photos, it's a failure. I was the cautionary tale, the 40-year-old warning label they used to make Brianna feel better about her own choices. But Brianna had spent so long staring at her own reflection that she'd forgotten other people have shadows too. The truth is, I stopped sharing my world with them years ago. Not because I was ashamed, but because I realized my life was too big for their yardstick. Every breakthrough, every fellowship, it was met with, "That's nice, dear," before the conversation swung back to Brianna's kitchen remodel. My success was a footnote. Her mundane life was the headline. My silence wasn't a secret. It was a boundary. When the table erupted into confused whispers, I didn't flinch. Brianna's laugh was a reflex, the sound of someone who hadn't realized the ground beneath her feet had turned into a fault line. "That's not funny, Chloe," she said, clutching her wine glass. "You don't just wake up married after 8 years. Marriage requires a ceremony, a registry, a social media announcement." I didn't argue. I simply pulled my phone from my clutch and slid it across the white tablecloth. The screen glowed with a candid shot of me and a man standing on a rugged cliffside in the Scottish Highlands. I was laughing, not the polite, weary smile I wore at these dinners, but a look of pure, unadulterated joy. Beside me stood Justin. My father put down his fork with a deliberate clink. My mother leaned in, her eyes squinting at the screen. "Is that Justin Vance?" she whispered, her voice cracking. I nodded slowly. 8 years in March. We had 11 people there. No performance, no invitations for people who only want to measure the catering costs. Just us. Brianna snatched the phone, her knuckles turning white. She scrolled through the gallery like she was looking for a glitch in a simulation. She saw us at a charity gala in Manhattan, me in an emerald silk dress, Justin's hand possessively on the small of my back. "This is fake," she hissed, though panic was darting through her eyes. "You're making this up. Why would you hide this?" I looked at my father, then my mother, and finally back at her. "Because for years I've been the silent builder in this family," I said, my voice dropping into a cold clinical tone. "When Dad needed that hip replacement last year and the anonymous donor covered the $60,000 gap that insurance wouldn't touch, that was Justin's foundation. When your boutique was failing 3 years ago and a private equity firm suddenly offered you a low-interest lifeline, that was me, Brianna." I paused, letting the weight settle. "I've been footing the bill for your version of a perfect life while you used my perceived loneliness as a punchline." Brianna's face contorted. She wasn't feeling guilty. She was feeling hunted. "So you married a rich man," she spat, her voice trembling with forced, brittle bravado. "You've spent 8 years lying to your own flesh and blood. How selfish can one person be?" My father found his voice, and it was cold. "She's right, Chloe. If you had this kind of resource, why would you let us worry?" Brianna saw the opening and waved over a man standing near the bar. "Actually," she said, that wicked glint returning to her eyes, "it's a good thing we're all here. This is Marcus. He's looking for an investor, and I told him you were single and looking for guidance." Marcus sat down right next to me, smelling of expensive cologne and cheap desperation. I felt a vibration in my pocket. A text from Justin. "I'm watching the feed. Chloe, the audacity is staggering. Ready for the data I just sent." I looked at Brianna, who was smirking. She thought this was a game of social status. She didn't realize that in my world, we work with facts, and the facts I just received about Brianna's perfect lifestyle were about to burn her world to the ground. You know, Brianna, I said, ignoring Marcus, I used to wonder why you hated my career so much. Then I realized, my work is about fixing broken things, and you only know how to break them. I pulled a tablet from my bag. Let's talk about your boutique, Brianna, and why Brandon's firm is actually under investigation for embezzlement. Brandon's face drained of color. I swiped to the next document, a forensic audit of the Cahill Family Trust Fund. Let's talk about the $400,000 that went missing from Grandma's estate last June, I said, my voice cutting like a scalpel. The money earmarked for my research, the money that suddenly appeared in Brianna's boutique account. My mother's glass hit the floor. I'm saying your golden daughter is a thief, Mom. She forged my signature on the withdrawal slips. She thought I was too busy saving lives to notice a bank account I rarely checked. You can't prove that, Brandon stammered. I leaned forward. Justin's legal team spent the last 48 hours tracing the IP addresses for the transfers. They lead back to your home office. This is a felony. I told the table that my attorney had already drafted the formal notice. They had 24 hours to initiate a full repayment plan, or the police report would be filed by Monday morning. The manager suddenly appeared. He bowed toward me. Mrs. Vance, he said, and the name hung in the air like a gavel strike. Mr. Vance is waiting in the car. He's seen the security footage. Should we escort these individuals out? That won't be necessary, I said. We're finished here. I walked past them, my heels clicking on the marble floor with a steady rhythmic pulse. I stepped out into the Chicago night, where the cold air hit my face like a clean slate. Justin was standing by the car and pulled me into the warmth of his side. How do you feel? He asked. I looked at the city lights. Like I've been holding my breath for 37 years, I said. And I just took my first real gulp of air. I opened the family group chat and hit delete and exit. Now I know exactly what you're thinking right now. You're wondering why Chloe waited 8 long years to drop the hammer. You're frustrated that she spent $60,000 on her father's surgery while they treated her like an outcast. It feels like she was being a doormat, right? But before you judge her, let's look at the psychological trap that nearly cost her everything. In psychology, we call this the slot machine effect, or intermittent reinforcement. Toxic families are masters at this. They don't mistreat you every single second. They give you just enough crumbs of hope, a birthday card here, a thumbs-up emoji there, to keep you pulling the lever. Chloe wasn't being weak. She was addicted to the hope that one day they would finally see her value. She was playing a rigged game, hoping for a jackpot of love that was never going to drop. But Chloe did something brilliant that most people miss. She shifted from emotional hope to financial self-defense. Let's break down her street-smart moves. First, look at the audit strategy. While Brianna was busy playing the successful boutique owner on social media, Chloe was quietly gathering data. Scammers and toxic manipulators thrive in the fog. They hate details. By running a forensic audit on the family trust, Chloe took the emotion out of the fight and replaced it with cold, hard numbers. She didn't argue about how they hurt her. She argued about $400,000 and forged signatures. When you deal with toxic people, stop talking about how they hurt you and start talking about what they owe you. Second, notice the buyout. Chloe didn't just walk away. She invested in her freedom. By giving Brianna 24 hours to pay up or face the police, she wasn't being nice. She was setting a price on her peace of mind. Sometimes you have to realize that the money you've lost to toxic people is actually the tuition fee for your graduation from their drama. Finally, she practiced information asymmetry. She knew everything about their finances, but they knew nothing about her marriage to Justin. She built her fortress in silence. In the real world, your best defense is a life that your enemies can't measure. Happiness isn't something you have to prove with a photo. It's the quiet peace of knowing exactly who you are when the cameras are off. If you've ever been the one left out of the frame, remember, you're the one holding the camera. You decide what's worth capturing. Your self-worth is not a balance sheet that your family gets to audit. If they can't appreciate the silent builder in the room, they don't deserve to live in the house you've created. Have you ever had to audit a relationship and realize you were over-invested in a sinking ship? Drop your story in the comments. We're building a community of people who are done being footnotes. Hit that subscribe button to keep your mind sharp and your boundaries sharper. You're the CEO of your own life. Don't let anyone else handle the books.